Dave, our principal broker over in Falls Church. I was doing pretty much odd jobs. I was doing like desktop support, cable management. Cable management is just a fancy term for actually just climbing underneath the desk and zip tying the wires.
Kevin does that.
Yeah.
I actually even came here to fix some computers. I don't know if Zuli remembers, but I actually crashed the whole network for like 3 hours, and she was pissed. I thought I was gonna get fired for that, but I don't know if she remembers that. So then I started working full time over at RTS. I was doing like short sale negotiations, title processing, post closing, and while I was working there full time, I was also building my real estate business. So I'd leave RTS at 5:30 and then go out and do showings until like 9 o'clock at night. I did that for about 2 years, and after 2 years, my wife really started to push me and said, "Hey, you need to get out there and do this full time." I'm sure a lot of you were scared of making that full commitment, going full time with no backup plan. But she believed in me, and I knew that if I wanted to grow, I had to take that risk. So that first year that I went into real estate full time, I sold about 8 million. Was a top producer. I've been a top producer every year since then. This past year, we sold 56 units for 26 million, and our goal this year is 100 units for 50 million. So when Kevin asked me, he had texted me and said, "Hey, could you do this talk to share some tips?" And he said, "Hey, you don't have to share any secrets." I thought it was kind of funny because I believe, honestly, we all know what it takes to become a top producer, what it takes to become successful. So there really is no secret. It's just really a matter of figuring out what we need to do, focus on it, and actually doing it. So I found this quote by Colin Powell that I felt really captured what I wanted to share with you guys. So the quote goes, "There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure." So there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So the first tip I want to share with you guys is knowing yourself. So the great thing about real estate is the flexibility in when we work, right? Even where you work, when you work, or even if you have to work at all. You can work at 5 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock. But I also believe that's the reason why there's such a high failure rate in real estate. It's 84% in the first 5 years. Because it's extremely difficult to stay on track if there's no one to hold you accountable. Everyone fantasizes about being your own boss, but I think it's more important to actually focus on what type of boss you want to be. So for me, I know that if I don't create a schedule on a time block, I'm going to get sidetracked and I won't be able to complete my daily task. So when I started doing real estate full time, regardless if I had an appointment or not, I made it a point to come into the office and work on my business. I didn't sleep in. I'll wake up at 6 o'clock, hit the gym, and then be in the office by 9 o'clock. I'll be in here, work on my database, make calls, send emails, social media, anything and everything to help me generate business, because I knew that routine would create consistency over time would equal results. So discipline equals consistency, and consistency equals results. And then the second tip, which is on the flip side of knowing yourself, is to know the consumer. So in today's culture, what Kevin and I were actually talking about earlier, there's two things that we know about the consumers. First is we all want instant gratification, right? And the second is people trust reviews from complete strangers. Yelp, Zillow, Google reviews. So the first one, instant gratification. So we are in the age of information on demand. We don't like waiting. Technology has really spoiled us, We're just talking about Amazon. Amazon Prime, your local grocery store, can deliver in 2 hours. Uber Eats, Grubhub, delivers food within 30 minutes. Netflix, Google Movies, Hulu, movie on demand. The list goes on and on. So speed is the name of the game. So let me ask everyone here, when your phone rings, do you answer it?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, out of experience, a lot of agents that I call don't answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, they never return the call. So if they don't answer their phone, do you think a lead or referral will wait for you to call back? Or will they just move on to the next person that's available to take that call? It's the culture that we live in. People expect a response right away, regardless if it's a call, text, or email. They want a response right now because that's just the way everything works. anything that revolves around service, it's immediate. The second part to that is about trusting reviews from strangers. So 91% of people read online reviews, and 84% trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. 84% trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. So I mean, how many of us, before we walk into a restaurant, before we do any type of business, what do? We pick up our phone, look them up, and see what type of reviews they have. So if we know this is how our culture has evolved, what does your online review say? Do you have an online presence? So if someone met you today and Googled you, would they find you, and what would they find out about you? You know, your online presence and what it says is your resume. So it's imperative that you have reviews on multiple sites, not just one. The third tip that I want to share with you all, I just call it people business. So we all know we're in the people business, right? And who do people like to do business with? People they like, people they can relate to, and people they can trust, right? So how do we make sure we're able to satisfy these criteria? So let's break down one of them. So when you meet a new lead or a person in person, within the first 7 seconds of meeting, they have a solid impression of who you are. And some research suggests it only takes a seventh of a second for people to start determining traits like trustworthiness. Can you believe that? 7 seconds of someone meeting you, they're already starting to analyze you. And you're probably wondering, how can they make that determination so quickly? And the fact is, people will judge you on how you look way before you even open your mouth and speak or any action that you take. So it's so important that you need to look your part. And it really blows my mind when I'm out there in the field or even in the office and I see agents in sweatpants, t-shirts, wrinkled clothes. And it blows my mind. I mean, what kind of impression are you trying to make? You know, if you're helping someone buy $1 million home, $500,000 home, $200,000, it doesn't matter. Because the fact is, that purchase is going to be one of their most expensive purchases in their life. So don't you think they want someone that looks well put together, looks successful, that's going to represent them correctly? People make these assumptions in their mind regardless of what they say. It's just human nature. Mm-hmm. So, and just as important as it is to look your part, I believe is important, I like to call it get in where you fit in. So, how can you make it easier for people to establish trust? Well, we all know people tend to trust someone that they can relate to, right? So for me, I know I can relate to people in their 20s, 30s, first-time home buyers, and especially with like families with kids, like they're looking specifically for a good school district. I know a lot of us hear that all the time. Because for me, I a personal experience. My daughter went to a school that wasn't highly rated. The teacher constantly told us that she had a learning disability. So my wife and I, we knew that wasn't true. So we moved to a different area, a better school district, and literally overnight, she went from having learning disability to honor roll. And this is a story that I share with a lot of the clients that I meet. And it helps establish a connection. When one parent to another hears of an experience like that, they can relate to it. And people that they can relate to, they can easily trust. So I find that if you work a demographic that you're most similar to, that you can most relate to, find different things you can relate to, is how you can make that connection and how you can keep them engaged. My fourth tip is to be client focused and not competitor focused. So what does that mean? So instead of focusing on what I need to do to beat my competitors, I only focus on what I can do to improve my client experience. I literally do anything and everything I need to do to keep my clients happy. You know, after every interaction, issue, miscommunication, or even praise, I would reevaluate what I'm doing and what I could do to make it better. Questions that always come up whenever we're analyzing is, what can I do to make the process less stressful? If we're working with buyers, what can we do to make showings more informative for the buyers? So these are questions that we constantly are asking me and my team to kind of improve the process and improve the process for the buyer or seller. If you were to ask any one of my clients how many clients did they think they were working with, and I assure you they're going to say one, just them. But in fact, I'm usually working with anywhere between 10 and 25 clients, and then that's not including all the prospects that I'm nurturing, which could be another 20 or 30 leads. But that's how well I serve my clients. You know, if they text me, I respond in 5 minutes. Never the next day, never overnight. Always within 5 minutes, and I expect that out of my guys as well. Emails, phone calls, immediately. I never got distracted by competitor obsession. I only cared about my clients because I knew that if I took good care of my clients, they would in turn take care of me, which would be a referral, a consistent flow of referrals. My fifth tip, which is actually something Kevin also was talking to me about earlier, is systems and organization. So once my business started to pick up, I started to notice things falling through the cracks. You know, I would forget to follow up on leads because I was busy. And then I noticed I would have these cycles. I'm sure some of you have heard peaks and lows, where you have business and then nothing. And then you're busy, then nothing, busy and nothing. So generally speaking, when you're working with a buyer, you have roughly a 60-day turnaround time, 30 days to find them a home, 30 days to closing. Sellers, probably about the same, 30, 45 days on the market, 30 days to go to closing. So we know this. So what I realized is that it's just as important to service your closing clients as it is to nurture and continue to prospecting for more business, even when you're busy. Otherwise, you will continue having these peaks and lows. So how do you continue to prospect while you're servicing your clients? By using systems to leverage your time and to stay organized. Organization is like the most important thing. So let's talk about one of the systems that I have. Probably one of the most important systems that I have is the CRM. It's customer relations management system. It's usually a system, usually cloud-based. So let me clarify, your phone's contact database is not a CRM. It's a completely separate system. So when I started, I used my phone's database. It's easy when you have a few clients. You're just taking a few notes, you're adding. But as my business grew, it became extremely cumbersome. I would get people confused, have similar first names, or what's worse was when a buyer or seller wasn't ready to transact. And I would put them in my phone and then I would just forget to call them. I mean, there's nothing worse than losing a client and losing business. I mean, that's money out the door. But without being organized and having a CRM to keep track of these things, you're gonna lose business. So let me clarify that when I say system, I'm also referring to both technology and a set of procedures of how things should be done. So let me elaborate a little bit on the CRM. So for example, when we get a new online lead that comes in, we have a system of what I'm supposed to do, and then the other part is the CRM doing its automation. So when John comes in, the first thing that my CRM does is it sends the lead a text, says, hey, got your request on 123 Main Street, when can I call you? And at the same time, I'm also looking at the property, and then I'm calling the lead at the same time as soon as I can. If I make contact with the lead, then I set the appointment, go out and meet them, then all's good. But if I'm unable to make that contact, there is a system where we would repeatedly call that lead, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day for 7 days straight, and then the CRM would continuously emailing that lead for a whole year straight. The whole point of that is to try to make the connection.
And what CRM do you use?
So I used to use Top Producer, and now I'm using Follow Up Boss. We did a lot of research, and Follow Up Boss seems to be the best one out there for teams.
What is it?
Follow Up Boss.
Boss.
Follow Up Boss.
BOSS?
Yep. So everything that I do, from meeting the buyer the first time to listing presentations to follow up on leads, we have a system, and the system is documented in white papers. For those of you who don't know, white papers are just SOPs, standard operating procedures. So they're step-by-step manual for everything, every type of task that we do. By having these type of systems, we are much more efficient. So instead of throwing my agent out there and then they figure out how to do things on their own through trial and error 10 different ways, we all do the same thing exactly the same way, so that our clients get the same level of service, and it's the most efficient way to do that.
And that's through your CRM?
No, the
SOP.
The SOP, that's just something that we create, just literally a Word document.
We need that.
Yeah, so that's just something that if you do something repeatedly over and over, then we document it. And then so I have one that's called listing presentation. So it lists, okay, this is the first thing you do, this is what you do, if you're gonna meet a buyer, this is the presentation you use, these are the questions you ask, and this is what you do. So I mean, everything is all about systems. You can't just go out there and wing it. I mean, you can to a certain extent, but after a while it becomes,
all falls through.
Yeah, so it's all about organization and systems. That's like the base of most well-run businesses. Excuse me a second. So my last tip, the sixth, is what I feel is the most important is your mindset. I feel this is the most important tip because we as people, humans, we're gonna fail at something, actually at many things. We're not always gonna succeed at what we do, but that's okay. You know, we just have to have it in us to always get back up and push forward. If a lead hangs up on you, pick up the phone, call them. Don't call them back. Maybe call them back, depending on why they hung up on you. Call them back or call another lead. But you have to keep pushing forward. You can't let minor setbacks demoralize you or bring you down. You know, I read a study that they did on successful people, and they found that one of the most defining traits among successful people is their drive, their hunger, grit, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't the most intelligent, it wasn't the most talented, and surprisingly, it wasn't the most hardworking. Although hard work is important, it's definitely part of the equation, but it wasn't the most common thread among the successful. Because if you think about it, there are a lot of really hardworking people out there, including my father, who worked as an auto mechanic for 25 years, stood in a 110-degree bay for 25 years. I mean, the people that work outside, I mean, that's hard work. But it's the people with the most drive, the most hunger that will succeed. Back when I got laid off from my IT job, it was actually one failure in a long list of failures that were knocking me down. You know, I had failed in my first marriage. I failed in my finances. I went through bankruptcy. I lost my home. I moved back into my parents' house. I failed in my career. I lost my job. You know, I was getting knocked down over and over, but I always got back up. You know, I wasn't going to allow myself to be finished. They say a man is only finished when he quits, not when he fails. You know, I could have caught up and quit, but I was given an opportunity. I was introduced to real estate, and I saw what possibilities it held. You know, we all here have that same opportunity, but it's up to you to seize whatever and do whatever it takes to succeed. So when I hear agents talk about work-life balance, I think it's kind of silly because I don't believe in that. My wife and I, we do what we call work-life effectiveness. So let me clarify, if you do a normal 9-to-5 job where you leave work, you drive home, watch TV, play with the kids or whatever, then you can leave work. You can do what people say, turn it off and have a work-life balance because you're able to separate work from life. But as a business owner, this is not something that we do. This is something that we are. We are a business. So you don't just say, I don't work after 8 o'clock or weekends, or I need to unplug for 2 weeks. Because you have to realize, as a business owner, we're constantly fighting to gain and to keep market share. It's a 24/7 battle. Someone somewhere out there is trying to beat you. Someone's trying to steal your clients. Someone's trying to take your business. So if you unplug for 2 weeks, what do you think you're gonna come back to? So for me, I integrate my work and life. I don't try to separate it. You know, I work where I sleep where I work. My wife and I, we love eating out. So when we want to enjoy a nice dinner, we make sure we invite a past client, a friend, so that we're making a connection with our sphere, as well as doing something that we enjoy. So that's integration. Another example, when I went to Japan a few years ago, I made sure weeks in advance that I had pocket Wi-Fi. So in Japan, for some reason, you can rent a Wi-Fi and you have like a hotspot with you. I did that so that I could be connected. So any of my clients email me, text me, whatever, or new clients that came in, I would be able to respond to them. That didn't ruin my vacation. A lot of people say, oh, that would ruin my vacation. But it only took a few minutes to respond, but in fact, it actually made my vacation better. Because I knew when I got back, I had a bunch of clients waiting for me. I wasn't like, gosh, am I going home to like an empty pipeline? I answer calls after 11 o'clock. I text my clients sometimes at 1 a.m. If they're awake and they're texting me, I'm texting them back. It doesn't bother me. Listing agents in here. If you received a showing request on Christmas, it was probably me. So, I take calls during the holidays, while I'm in the movies, during the party. Wherever I can work, I'll stop, answer the calls, emails, texts, whatever, and then go back to enjoying myself. Everyone loves the idea of being successful. We see the images on Facebook, Instagram, but how many of us are actually willing to do what it takes? I'm not saying you should hustle and burn yourself out and not take any breaks, but you can take breaks and enjoy yourself all while still working in between. Being a business owner takes sacrifice. It's not for everyone. If you're trying to build your business, but having a work-life balance is more important, then you should probably be working for someone, not for yourself. So I'll end my talk with a question for you all. Are you willing to sacrifice today's pleasures for tomorrow's rewards? Thank you so much for coming out and listening. Do you guys have any questions? Or?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the CRM, that was good for me to know to really, and that's what I've seen. You know, I'll pull expireds and I'll try to get organized and okay, I'm gonna go out and I was starting with way too much and then it would just collapse.
Yeah.
And so, what do you suggest or how to get organized with that? Because that's my problem is the system.
So with the CRM, the one that we use is good for teams. The CRM, if you're a solo agent, there are certain CRMs that are good for solo agents.
What do you recommend for just one person?
I think if you want one where it's not too expensive, it's called Line Desk. I've seen pretty good reviews on that one. It's only like $20-30 a month, but it's supposed to be really good and it helps streamline the whole process.
And that's Line Desk, D-E-S-K.
Yep.
Okay.
Like the line, like that.
All right. And then the SOP that you said that kind of outlines your day or your schedule. You talked about your schedule. You get up at 6. So what do? You do your calls in the morning, or you how does your schedule
So my
go?
typical day, I usually wake up between 6 and 7. I'll go out and hit the gym, and then I'll come back. And so right now I currently work out in the home office, but eventually wherever we work, I make calls between 9 to 10 because that's usually a good time to get them while they're on the way to work. And then sometimes, depending on when a lead comes in, I'll try to hit them at lunch, and then we'll do it again on the way when they're on the way home, which is usually between 5 and 6. So we try not to schedule any appointments during those times because it's important for you to time block times to prospect as if it's a client.
Right.
Because if you don't value, if you don't cherish, or if you don't protect that time, you're always going to find something that's going to say, oh, it's more important.
Interrupts.
Yep.
Right.
So you have to treat your prospecting time as if you're meeting a client. So you can't double book. Just like you can't double book a client, you can't double book a time that you're blocking just to prospect. Because if you're only staying busy, like I was saying, if you're only staying busy dealing with your now clients or your closing clients, you're going to end up after 30 days with nothing. And then you're scrambling, calling people, and then you're busy, and then you're nothing. So you have to time block to keep a consistent flow. So your funnel should always be like a few people in closing, people that's out looking, or people that's getting, or people that still feel far out. I have leads that I nurture for over 2 years sometimes. So for me, I'm extremely forgetful. So I use my Google Calendar religiously. Like anything, Google Calendar.
Google Calendar.
I literally put everything in my calendar, regardless if it's work or not, because you can't be in 2 places at once. So if I'm going to be in the gym or if I'm going to visit someone, I block that time so I know I'm not going to do anything during that time. So calendar is like my lifesaver. It's like most important.
Do you answer calls at the gym?
I do. I do. It's kind of funny. I always joke with my wife about that. I'm in the gym for an hour, but I'm probably working out maybe 5 minutes. The rest is emails, texts, and so I mean that's probably not a good thing, but that's just part of the nature of business.
What happens if you have a client who calls you 3 or 4 times a day with several questions every day? Do you answer?
I do. It depends on if they're a phone client. Because you know some clients will never pick up the phone. Some only do text. Some only do emails. But I usually do. Yes. If I'm busy, I'll call them back. But if it's one of the clients that's just constantly have question over question over question, then I would definitely try to minimize, because you also have to. You can't be consumed by one client as well. You need to kind of spread your time across. So I mean, yeah. I would try to, or at least try to answer all our questions during that one call. Maybe ask her, hey, do you have any other questions before I go? Because I'm going to be walking to an appointment. Or just another way is say, hey, listen, I'm in and out of appointments all day. The probably best way is just send me a text, and as soon as I'm able, I'll respond back. Versus catering to the phone calls, which completely isolates you right then and there. Text is like the best way to do multiple clients, because you can work a client if you're out showing, answer. So I mean that's the best way. Phone calls like paralyze you for that time. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
And we have one more presentation that's coming.